You worthless old woman, move your cart before I call security. Eleanor Whitmore's Heiress bag swung as she shoved past Dorothy Washington at the airport Starbucks. People like you don't belong in first class. The elderly black woman stumbled, her boarding pass fluttering to the marble floor of JFK Terminal 4. Eleanor's designer heel came down deliberately on the crumpled paper. Around them, travelers turned to stare. "Maybe try the McDonald's in the food court next time," Eleanor sneered, pulling out her phone to live stream. Her 2.3 million Instagram followers deserved to see this entertainment. Dorothy bent slowly to retrieve her damaged boarding pass. Her weathered hands smoothed the wrinkled paper with quiet dignity. She looked up at Eleanor with eyes that had seen decades of such moments. Have you ever wondered what happens when someone mistakes quiet dignity for weakness? The Delta Sky Club entrance buzzed with Tuesday afternoon energy. Business travelers clutched laptops and coffee cups, their conversations blending into a familiar airport hum. Eleanor adjusted her oversized sunglasses and tapped her phone screen. "Hey, gorgeous followers," she chirped into the camera. "Eleanor here, dealing with some serious airport chaos right now. You will not believe what I'm witnessing." She turned the lens toward Dorothy, who was carefully examining her damaged boarding pass. The older woman's gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Her navy blazer looked well-maintained but not expensive. Her rolling carry-on was practical black fabric, nothing designer about it. "So this lady literally threw herself in front of me," Eleanor continued to her phone. "Like I'm just trying to get my latte and catch my flight to Miami for Dad's yacht party this weekend. But apparently some people think they can just block premium passengers." Dorothy glanced up from her boarding pass. For just a moment, Eleanor caught something unexpected in those dark eyes. Not fear or embarrassment, something else entirely. But it passed quickly. "Excuse me," Dorothy said quietly. "I think you may have—" "Oh no, she's talking to me now," Eleanor interrupted, keeping the camera rolling. Her follower count was climbing fast. 2,847 viewers and growing. "Ma'am, I really don't have time for whatever this is about." Dorothy held up her boarding pass. Despite the wrinkles and scuff marks from Eleanor's heel, the text was still visible. "First class, seat 2A, Atlanta destination." Eleanor's perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up. "How did you afford that? Seriously?" She leaned closer to the phone camera. "Guys, this is so weird. Like, how does someone like this even get first class? Is this some kind of welfare fraud situation?" A few nearby passengers stopped their conversations. A young woman with a tablet began recording. 3 teenagers at a corner table pulled out their phones. Dorothy folded the boarding pass carefully and slipped it into her blazer pocket. She reached for her coffee cup with steady hands. "I should probably head to my gate." "Hold up," Eleanor said, stepping sideways to block her path. "I'm actually really curious about this now. Like, my dad literally owns stock in half the airlines flying out of here. I've never seen anything like this." The digital departure board above them flickered. Flight DL-127 to Atlanta. Boarding in 47 minutes. Dorothy checked her watch. It was elegant, vintage-looking, with Roman numerals on a cream face. Eleanor noticed it briefly, but dismissed it as probably fake. "Look," Eleanor said, her voice getting louder. "I don't want to be mean, but there's obviously been some kind of mistake here. First-class tickets cost like $3,000. Maybe customer service can help you figure out where you're supposed to sit." More phones appeared. The teenager filming from the corner table was whispering excitedly to her friends. Someone behind them muttered about calling security. Dorothy opened her carry-on and retrieved a sleek titanium briefcase. It was thin, expensive-looking, with a small corporate logo etched near the handle. She set it carefully on a nearby table. "That's an interesting assumption," Dorothy said, her voice still calm. "But I think I'll be fine with my current seat assignment." Eleanor's live stream was gaining momentum. Comments flooded in faster than she could read them. Most were cheering her on, calling Dorothy various names, suggesting she contact airport police. but a few seemed confused, asking questions Eleanor couldn't quite follow. "This is honestly getting ridiculous," Eleanor announced to her camera. "Like, I'm trying to be patient here, but this lady is clearly in the wrong place. Someone needs to handle this situation before it gets out of hand." A Sky Club employee approached hesitantly. Tom Bradley had worked customer service for 12 years. He'd seen every kind of travel drama imaginable, but something about this scene made him uncomfortable. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, looking between the two women. "Finally," Eleanor said. "Yes, there's definitely a problem. This woman has somehow gotten hold of a first-class boarding pass, and she's refusing to admit there's been a mistake. I really think you should check her ticket validity or whatever." Tom looked at Dorothy. There was something familiar about her face, but he couldn't place it. "Ma'am, would you mind if I took a look at your boarding pass?" Dorothy smiled gently. "Of course." She handed over the wrinkled paper. Tom examined it carefully. The barcode scanned properly on his handheld device. Delta Diamond Medallion status, 2.1 million lifetime miles. First-class seat 2A, definitely valid. "Everything appears to be in order," he said slowly. Eleanor's mouth fell open. "That's impossible! Run it again!" Tom's device chimed softly. Dorothy's boarding pass information populated on his screen. Dr. D. Washington, Diamond Medallion member since 2003. Frequent routes between Atlanta and Los Angeles. No travel restrictions. "I'm sorry for any confusion," Tom said to Dorothy. "Your boarding pass is completely valid. First class, seat 2A. Eleanor stared at the device screen. Her Instagram comments were exploding. The viewer count had hit 12,000 and climbing. "There has to be some kind of error in your system," she insisted. "I'm calling my father right now. He'll sort this out immediately." Eleanor's fingers flew across her phone screen. Her father's contact appeared with a photo of them on his yacht in Monaco. Richard Whitmore always answered her calls. "Daddy, thank God. I'm at JFK and there's a situation." She kept the live stream running with her other hand, balancing the phone awkwardly. "There's this woman here claiming she has first class, and the staff are being completely unhelpful." The crowd around them had grown. Sarah Chen, a marketing executive from Boston, was live streaming on her own phone. She'd recognized Eleanor from social media and sensed something newsworthy developing. "Eleanor Whitmore causing drama at JFK," Sarah whispered to her followers. "This is getting intense." Two airport security officers approached. The taller one, Officer Rodriguez, had been called about a disturbance near the Sky Club entrance. The scene looked relatively calm, but phones were everywhere. "What seems to be the issue?" Rodriguez asked. Eleanor immediately pivoted toward him. "Officer, thank you for coming. This woman is harassing premium passengers and refusing to accept that there's been a ticketing error. I really think she might be running some kind of scam." Dorothy remained perfectly still beside her titanium briefcase. She checked her watch again, the vintage Cartier with its elegant Roman numerals. 43 minutes until boarding. Rodriguez looked at Tom Bradley, who was still holding Dorothy's boarding pass. "Sir, is there a validity issue with this passenger's ticket?" "No issue at all," Tom replied. "Dr. Washington's boarding pass is completely legitimate. Diamond Medallion status, first-class seat, 2A. "Dr. Washington?" Rodriguez repeated. Something about that name rang a bell. Eleanor's live stream comments were chaotic. Her viewer count had hit 18,000. Most were supporting her, but some comments made her pause. "Wait, isn't that the NASA lady?" "OMG, Eleanor, you're making a mistake. This is about to be iconic." She couldn't read them all fast enough while talking to her father. "Daddy, they're saying her ticket is real, but that's obviously impossible. Can you call Delta Corporate? I know you have contacts there." Richard Whitmore's voice came through clearly on speakerphone. "Eleanor, calm down. Let me understand what's happening. You're saying there's an older woman with a questionable first-class ticket?" "Exactly. And she's being really weird about it, like she won't admit there's been a mistake." Dorothy's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it briefly. Board meeting moved to 3 p.m. Confirm attendance. She typed back quickly. Delayed but handling a teachable moment. Eleanor noticed the interaction. See, she's probably texting her accomplices or something. This is definitely some kind of organized fraud. The 3 teenagers from the corner table had moved closer. One of them, a girl named Maya, was recording everything for TikTok. Her video had already been viewed 2,000 times in the past 5 minutes. Y'all, this is wild, Maya whispered to her camera. Rich girl versus this super calm older lady. The energy is not matching up. Officer Rodriguez was studying Dorothy more carefully. Something about her composure was unusual. Most passengers in confrontational situations showed stress. Dorothy seemed almost amused. Ma'am, he said to Dorothy, do you have additional identification I could see? Dorothy opened her wallet smoothly. She handed over her driver's license, a NASA Veteran Services card, and a TSA pre-check card. All legitimate, all with her name and photo. Rodriguez examined them carefully. The NASA card caught his attention. You worked for NASA, ma'am? I did, Dorothy replied simply. Eleanor scoffed loudly. Oh, please, anyone can buy fake IDs online these days. Daddy, are you hearing this? She's claiming she worked for NASA now. Let me call you back, Eleanor, Richard said. I'll contact Delta Security directly. The phone went quiet. Eleanor's confidence wavered for just a moment, but she rallied quickly. This is honestly insane, she announced to her live stream. Like we're supposed to believe this random woman is some kind of NASA scientist? The lies are getting more desperate. Sarah Chen's own live stream was gaining traction. Her followers were sharing clips across platforms. The hashtag #AirportDrama was starting to trend. Guys, I think Eleanor might be in over her head here, Sarah whispered to her camera. Something about this older lady. She's not reacting like someone who's been caught in a lie. Dorothy's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. She answered quietly. Yes, I'm still at JFK. No, just a minor delay. I should be there by 3. Yes, the merger paperwork is in my briefcase. Eleanor's eyes widened. Merger paperwork? What kind of scam is this lady running? Officer, you need to search her bag immediately. Ma'am, Rodriguez said carefully, I can't search anyone's belongings without probable cause. Probable cause? She's obviously running some kind of business fraud. Look at her acting like she's important. Dorothy ended her phone call and looked directly at Eleanor for the first time since the confrontation began. Her expression was serene, almost maternal. I understand you're frustrated, Dorothy said. Travel can be stressful. Don't patronize me, Eleanor snapped. I travel first class every week. I know what belongs and what doesn't. The departure board updated. Flight DL-127 to Atlanta. Boarding in 32 minutes. Tom Bradley was growing increasingly uncomfortable. Other passengers were complaining about the commotion. His manager would want this resolved quickly. Ladies, he said, perhaps we could discuss this more privately in our customer service office. No, Eleanor said firmly. I want this handled right here where everyone can see. This woman needs to admit she doesn't belong in first class. More phones appeared. The crowd had grown to nearly 50 people. Airport staff from other terminals had started gathering to watch. Someone from CNN was reportedly en route. Dorothy checked her phone again. Her calendar showed a 3 p.m. appointment. Whitmore-Washington Aerospace Partnership, final contracts. She looked up at Eleanor with newfound interest. Did you say your last name was Whitmore? Eleanor straightened proudly. That's right. My father is Richard Whitmore of Whitmore Industries. He literally owns half the aerospace companies in this country. Whitmore Industries, Dorothy repeated thoughtfully. That's very interesting. Something in her tone made Officer Rodriguez pause. Tom Bradley felt a chill run down his spine. Even Sarah Chen's livestream comments were shifting. Oh no, Eleanor. She's about to find out. This is gonna be legendary. Eleanor's confidence was at its peak. Finally, some recognition. Maybe now you'll understand why I can't have random people claiming first-class seats they didn't pay for. Dorothy smiled gently. Mr. Whitmore and I are actually supposed to meet this afternoon. Eleanor laughed harshly. Right! And I'm supposed to believe that my father has meetings with people like you? The crowd fell silent. Even the airport background noise seemed to fade. Dorothy reached for her titanium briefcase. I think, she said quietly, it's time we cleared up this misunderstanding. Dorothy's fingers moved with practiced precision as she opened the titanium briefcase. The lock mechanism was biometric. A soft blue light scanned her thumbprint before clicking open. Inside, organized in leather compartments, were documents that would change everything. She withdrew a single business card and handed it to Eleanor. Eleanor glanced at it dismissively, then her expression shifted. The color drained from her face as she read aloud, Dorothy Washington, Chief Executive Officer and Founder, Washington Aerospace Solutions. The name hit the crowd like electricity. Sarah Chen's live stream exploded with comments. That's the Dorothy Washington. Eleanor is so screwed. She designed the Mars rover guidance systems. Officer Rodriguez stepped closer, his demeanor completely changed. Dr. Washington? The Dorothy Washington who worked on the International Space Station navigation systems? Tom Bradley's eyes went wide. Oh my God. Dr. Washington, I'm so sorry. I should have recognized you immediately. You're a legend. Eleanor stared at the business card, her hands trembling slightly. Washington Aerospace Solutions. She'd heard that name in her father's phone calls, board meetings, merger discussions. This has to be fake, she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Dorothy reached into her briefcase again and produced a leather portfolio. She opened it to reveal official letterhead, contracts, and photographs. Images of her shaking hands with NASA administrators, receiving awards, standing beside spacecraft that had traveled to Mars. I founded Washington Aerospace Solutions in 1987, Dorothy said calmly. We specialize in satellite navigation systems and deep space communication technology. Perhaps you've heard of our work with the Perseverance rover? The crowd was growing exponentially. Word had spread through the terminal via social media. Eleanor Via's Dorothy was trending nationally. Airport security was trying to manage the scene, but phones were everywhere. Maya, the teenager filming for TikTok, was practically vibrating with excitement. Y'all, this lady literally designed the technology that got us to Mars, and this rich girl just called her worthless. Eleanor's Instagram live stream had reached 67,000 viewers. Comments were pouring in faster than the app could display them. Most were no longer supportive. Eleanor, delete this now. Your dad is going to be so mad. This is career suicide. Dorothy retrieved her phone and showed Eleanor the screen. Her calendar was open to today's appointments. 2:00 p.m. Travel to NYC. 3:00 p.m. Whitmore Washington Aerospace Partnership. Final contract signing. 4:30 p.m. Press conference. 900 Bamara merger announcement. Eleanor's world tilted. She knew about this merger. Her father had been working on it for 18 months. It was supposed to save Whitmore Industries from their recent string of failed satellite launches. The partner company was Washington Aerospace Solutions, Eleanor breathed. That's correct, Dorothy said. Your father and I have been negotiating a partnership that would give Whitmore Industries access to our proprietary navigation technology. In exchange, we'd gain access to your manufacturing facilities and government contracts. Tom Bradley was openly staring now. Other airport employees had gathered, whispering among themselves. Someone from airport administration was pushing through the crowd. Dorothy continued, her voice never rising above conversational level. The merger was structured as a 65-35 split, with Washington Aerospace maintaining majority control. Total value, approximately $900 million. Eleanor's phone rang. Her father's contact photo filled the screen. She stared at it, paralyzed.
"You should probably answer that,"
Dorothy suggested gently. With shaking fingers, Eleanor accepted the call. Richard Whitmore's voice was tight with panic. "Eleanor, I just saw the video. Please tell me that's not Dr. Dorothy Washington you're arguing with." Eleanor couldn't speak. Dorothy smiled and gestured for the phone. "May I?" Eleanor handed it over numbly. "Hello, Richard," Dorothy said warmly. "This is Dorothy. I'm afraid I'm running a bit late for our meeting." Richard Whitmore's voice carried clearly through the speaker. "Dr. Washington, I cannot apologize enough. I had no idea Eleanor was... I'm watching this video and What can I do to fix this?" "Well," Dorothy said thoughtfully, "that depends on what you consider acceptable behavior from your company's representatives." The crowd had swelled to over 200 people. Airport security was setting up barriers. Someone shouted that CNN had arrived. The teenagers filming for TikTok were getting millions of views in real time. Eleanor finally found her voice. "Dad, I didn't know. She didn't say who she was." "She shouldn't have had to," Richard's voice cracked through the phone. "Dr. Washington, please. This merger is crucial for both our companies. Don't let my daughter's behavior destroy what we've built." Dorothy looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording everything, at Eleanor's tear-filled eyes. "Mr. Whitmore, I was actually looking forward to working with your family." The emphasis on "was" hit Eleanor like a physical blow. "Wait," Eleanor said desperately. "This is all just a misunderstanding. Yes, I made a mistake, but surely we can work this out privately?" Sarah Chen's livestream audience had grown to 45,000 viewers. Her commentary was being shared across every platform. "This is the most spectacular public meltdown I've ever witnessed. Eleanor Whitmore just destroyed a $900 million deal because she couldn't handle an elderly black woman having a first-class seat." Dorothy's phone buzzed with text messages. Her legal team at Cravath, Swain & Moore was watching the videos. Her board members were calling emergency sessions. Stock futures were already reacting to rumors of the merger's collapse. Officer Rodriguez was getting updates through his radio. "Dr. Washington, we have reporters requesting access to the terminal. Would you like us to escort you to a private area?" "That's very kind," Dorothy replied, "but I think transparency might be best here." She turned back to Eleanor, who was clutching her phone with white knuckles. "You know what's interesting about aerospace partnerships?" Dorothy said conversationally. "They require absolute trust. When you're sending equipment worth billions of dollars into space, you can't afford to work with people who make judgments based on appearance rather than capability." Eleanor's live stream was still running. Her followers were jumping ship in real time, her follower count dropping by thousands every minute. "I can change," Eleanor said suddenly. I realize I made a huge mistake." "But surely you wouldn't cancel an entire business deal because of one stupid moment?" Dorothy opened her portfolio again and withdrew a legal document. The letterhead read, "Whitmore-Washington Aerospace Partnership Agreement," with today's date. "Actually," Dorothy said, studying the contract, "there's a morality clause here. Section 14.3 states that either party may terminate this agreement if the other party engages in conduct that is detrimental to the partnership's values and public standing." She looked up at Eleanor's pale face, then at the hundreds of phones recording everything. "I'd say this qualifies." Richard Whitmore's voice came through the phone, desperate now. "Dr. Washington, please. Name your terms. Anything you want. Eleanor will make a public apology. We'll implement sensitivity training company-wide. Whatever it takes." Dorothy considered this. The crowd was hanging on every word. The teenagers with TikTok had moved closer, capturing every nuance of the conversation. "Mr. Whitmore," Dorothy said finally, "I think we need to have a very different conversation than the one we originally planned, and I think it needs to happen with your full board present." Eleanor's Instagram livestream had become evidence in her own destruction. 89,000 viewers watching as her family's business empire teetered on the edge of collapse. Can we still save this?" Eleanor whispered. Dorothy Washington, the woman who had navigated spacecraft to Mars, looked at the young woman who had called her worthless 30 minutes earlier. Dorothy's titanium briefcase clicked shut with a sound that seemed to echo through the terminal. The crowd of onlookers had grown beyond what airport security could easily manage. Phones were everywhere, capturing every moment from multiple angles. Eleanor stood frozen, still holding her father's phone. The business card trembled in her other hand. Washington Aerospace Solutions. The name her father had mentioned countless times over family dinners, board meeting preparations, yacht conversations about the merger that would change everything. "Dr. Washington," came a voice from the crowd. A woman in a CNN press badge was pushing through the barriers. "Could we get a statement about the merger discussions?" More reporters were arriving. Maya, the teenager with the viral TikTok, was providing live commentary. "Y'all, this is better than any TV drama. Rich girl just insulted the woman who could literally save her daddy's company." Dorothy's phone buzzed continuously. Text messages from her legal team, her board of directors, aerospace industry contacts who were monitoring the situation through social media. The story was spreading beyond just airport drama. It was becoming business news. "Mr. Whitmore," Dorothy said into Eleanor's phone, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades making life-or-death decisions about million-dollar spacecraft. "I think you should know that our contract negotiations included very specific language about corporate culture and public representation." Richard Whitmore's voice crackled with desperation. "Dr. Washington, please, Washington. Whatever Eleanor did, I take full responsibility. She doesn't represent our company's values." "Actually," Dorothy replied, glancing at Eleanor, "she represents exactly what your company's values appear to be." Officer Rodriguez received another update through his radio. "Dr. Washington, we've got news crews setting up outside. Terminal management wants to know if you'd prefer to continue this conversation somewhere more private." Dorothy looked around at the hundreds of faces, the countless recording devices, the live streams broadcasting to millions of viewers across multiple platforms. This wasn't just about one privileged young woman's public meltdown anymore. This was about systemic change. "I think," Dorothy said carefully, "that privacy is exactly what's allowed this kind of behavior to continue unchallenged for so long." Sarah Chen's live stream had reached 78,000 concurrent viewers. Her commentary was being quoted by major news outlets in real time. "This is unprecedented. A $900 million aerospace merger potentially collapsing live on social media because of racial discrimination." Eleanor finally found her voice again. "Dr. Washington, please. I know I made a terrible mistake, but you can't destroy my father's company because of something I did. That's not fair to all the employees who depend on those jobs." Dorothy studied the young woman's face. There was genuine panic there now, but was there understanding? Growth? Or just fear of consequences? "Eleanor," Dorothy said, using her first name for the first time, "do you have any idea how many qualified people your father's company has passed over for promotions, partnerships, or opportunities because they looked like me?" The question hung in the air. Eleanor's mouth opened and closed, but no words came. "These aren't isolated incidents," Dorothy continued. "They're symptoms of institutional attitudes that need to change. The question is whether your family's company is willing to be part of that change." Tom Bradley, the Sky Club employee, was taking notes on his tablet. He'd already received calls from his district manager, regional supervisor, and corporate headquarters. This incident was becoming a case study in customer service training. Eleanor's Instagram live stream was still running. Her follower count had dropped from 2.3 million to 2.1 million in the past hour. Comments were overwhelmingly negative now. "Girl, you just ended your family's empire. This is what privilege gets you. Dorothy Washington is a queen." The departure board updated again. Flight DL-127 to Atlanta. Boarding in 18 minutes. Dorothy checked her watch and made a decision. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm going to board my flight now. We can continue this conversation when I arrive in Atlanta, but it's going to be a very different discussion than the one we originally planned. Wait, Richard's voice came through the phone. Dr. Washington, please don't get on that plane angry. Let me fly to Atlanta. Let me bring our entire executive team. We can fix this. Can you? Dorothy asked. Because fixing this doesn't mean making it disappear. It means acknowledging the problem and implementing real solutions. Eleanor was crying now, tears streaming down her face as the magnitude of the situation hit her. I've ruined everything, haven't I? Dorothy looked at her with something that might have been compassion. You've revealed everything. Whether it's ruined depends on what happens next. The crowd around them had organized itself into a rough semicircle. Airport security was maintaining order, but everyone could hear the conversation. Someone started a slow clap that spread through the onlookers. Dr. Washington, came another reporter's voice. What would it take for the merger to proceed? Dorothy paused, considering her words carefully. These real-life stories, these touching stories about power and prejudice, they mattered beyond just corporate contracts. Accountability, she said finally. Real accountability, not just public relations damage control. Eleanor looked up from her tears. What does that mean? Dorothy's expression was unreadable. It means your father and I are going to have a very interesting conversation about the future of both our companies. The titanium briefcase handle caught the airport lights as Dorothy picked it up. In that moment, she looked every inch the aerospace pioneer who had helped humanity reach Mars, the business leader who had built a billion-dollar company from nothing, the woman who had faced down discrimination for decades and emerged stronger. That, she said quietly, looking directly at Eleanor, remains to be seen. 3 hours later, the 47th floor of Whitmore Industries' Manhattan headquarters felt like a war room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding view of Central Park, but Richard Whitmore wasn't admiring the scenery. He paced behind the mahogany conference table, his phone buzzing with updates from his crisis management team. The videos had gone viral beyond anyone's imagination. Hashtag Eleanor vs. Dorothy was trending globally. Stock futures showed Whitmore Industries down 12% in after-hours trading. Emergency board meetings were being called across the aerospace industry. Dorothy Washington entered the boardroom at exactly 3:00 p.m., flanked by 3 attorneys from Cravath, Swain, and Moore. Her titanium briefcase caught the afternoon light streaming through the windows. She looked composed, professional, and utterly in control. Dr. Washington, Richard said, rushing forward. Thank you for coming. Please, sit anywhere you'd like. Dorothy chose the chair directly across from where Eleanor sat. The young woman looked exhausted, her designer makeup smudged from crying. She'd changed clothes but couldn't shake the haunted expression that had settled over her features. Before we begin, Dorothy said, opening her briefcase, I want to be clear about something. This meeting isn't about salvaging the original merger terms. That partnership died at JFK Terminal 4. Richard's face went pale. Dr. Washington, surely we can— What we're discussing now, Dorothy continued, is whether there's any foundation for a different kind of relationship, one built on accountability rather than convenience. She spread documents across the table. Financial reports, patent portfolios, market analysis data. The numbers told a stark story. Washington Aerospace Solutions controls 47 patents essential to deep space navigation, Dorothy said. Without access to our technology, Whitmore Industries will lose the $340 million NASA Mars mission contract by December. Eleanor spoke for the first time since entering the room. What do you want from us? Dorothy studied her carefully. The question isn't what I want. It's what you're willing to give up. Richard leaned forward desperately. Anything. Name your terms. Full public accountability, Dorothy said without hesitation. Eleanor makes a comprehensive apology video, unscripted, acknowledging the harm caused by her actions, not a PR statement, real accountability. Eleanor's lawyer, a sharp woman named Jennifer Clark, interjected. My client is willing to make a public statement, but we'd need to review the language. No, Dorothy said firmly. No scripts, no legal review, raw honesty or nothing. The room fell silent. Through the windows, Manhattan buzzed with its usual energy, but inside this boardroom, careers and fortunes hung in the balance. Dorothy continued, Second condition. Whitmore Industries implements a comprehensive diversity and inclusion program, not sensitivity training, real structural change. She slid a folder across the table. Here's my proposal. A $50 million commitment over 5 years to establish the Dorothy Washington STEM Scholarship Fund. Full scholarships for underrepresented students in aerospace engineering. Richard's hands shook as he opened the folder. The numbers were staggering but manageable. This could work. Third condition, Dorothy said. Eleanor spends the next 12 months working directly with our company, not as an executive, as an entry-level engineer. She'll learn what it means to earn respect through competence. Eleanor's eyes widened. You want me to work for you? I want you to understand the people you dismissed so easily today, Dorothy replied. Our company is 60% women, 40% people of color. They're some of the brightest minds in aerospace. You'll report to Dr. Maria Santos, our lead navigation engineer. Jennifer Clark was taking furious notes. What about the merger terms? Dorothy's expression hardened. The original 65-35 split is off the table. New terms, 80-20, with Washington Aerospace maintaining control. Whitmore Industries becomes a subsidiary, not a partner. Richard felt the room spinning. That's essentially an acquisition. Yes, Dorothy said simply. It is. The brutality of it hit everyone simultaneously. Whitmore Industries, a company Richard's grandfather had founded in 1952, would effectively cease to exist as an independent entity. There has to be another way, Eleanor said desperately. What if I just disappear? Take a year off, go to Europe, stay out of the public eye? Dorothy shook her head. Running away isn't accountability. It's privilege protecting itself. She opened her laptop and turned it toward the group. The screen showed real-time social media metrics. The airport incident had been viewed over 50 million times across all platforms. Eleanor V's Dorothy had spawned thousands of think pieces about corporate culture, racial bias, and systemic change. This story isn't going away, Dorothy said. The question is whether you become part of the solution or remain part of the problem. Richard was calculating frantically. Even with the harsh terms, Dorothy's technology could save the NASA contract. The scholarship fund was expensive but manageable. The real cost was pride. If we agree to these terms, he said slowly, what guarantees do we have that you won't terminate the agreement later? Dorothy smiled for the first time since entering the room. The same guarantee you had before your daughter called me worthless. My word. Eleanor finally looked up from her hands. Dr. Washington, I need to ask you something directly. Do you think I can actually change? Or is this just punishment? The question hung in the air. Dorothy studied Eleanor's face, looking for something beyond fear and self-pity. That depends entirely on you, Dorothy said. Change requires admitting you were wrong, understanding why you were wrong, and doing the work to be better. Most people aren't willing to do that work. But you think some people can? I've spent 40 years in aerospace, Dorothy replied. I've learned that human beings are capable of remarkable things when they're properly motivated. Richard was reading through the contract terms again. The subsidiary structure was harsh but not unprecedented. The scholarship fund would generate positive PR. Eleanor's year of apprenticeship might actually teach her something valuable. Dr. Washington, he said finally, these terms are severe, but I understand why they have to be. If we agree, when would this arrangement begin? Immediately, Dorothy said. Eleanor's public apology gets recorded today. She starts work at our Atlanta facility Monday morning. The scholarship fund launches next quarter. Jennifer Clark had been quiet, reading through legal documents. Dr. Washington, there's one thing I don't understand. Why are you offering any partnership at all? You could walk away entirely and take your technology to SpaceX or Blue Origin. Dorothy packed her documents carefully before answering. Because walking away doesn't create change. It just moves the problem somewhere else. She looked directly at Eleanor. Your behavior today was unacceptable, but it was also educational. You showed the world exactly how institutional bias operates. Now you have an opportunity to show them how it can be dismantled. Eleanor took a shaky breath. If I do this, if I agree to everything, will you forgive me? Forgiveness isn't mine to give or withhold, Dorothy said. It's something you earn through your actions going forward. Richard signed the preliminary agreement with a hand that trembled slightly. 70 years of family legacy, reduced to a subsidiary. But the alternative was complete collapse. Dr. Washington, he said, I want you to know that Eleanor's behavior doesn't represent our family's values. Dorothy stood, closing her briefcase with a soft click. Mr. Whitmore, your daughter's behavior represents exactly what your family's values have produced. The question is whether you're ready to examine why. Eleanor looked up one final time. When do I start? Your first assignment, Dorothy said, is researching the contributions of Black women to NASA's space program. I want a 10,000-word report on my desk by Friday. That's in 3 days. Then you'd better get started. As Dorothy walked toward the door, Richard called after her. Dr. Washington, what made you decide to give us this chance? She paused, her hand on the door frame. Because these Black stories, these real-life stories about overcoming discrimination, they're not just about punishment. They're about the possibility of redemption. The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving the Whitmores to contemplate a very different future. 6 months later, Eleanor Whitmore stood in the clean room of Washington Aerospace Solutions' Atlanta facility, wearing a white lab coat and safety goggles. Her manicured nails had been replaced by short, practical ones. Her designer handbags had given way to a basic backpack containing technical manuals and circuit diagrams. The navigation array is misaligned by 0.3 degrees, she said to Dr. Maria Santos, her supervisor. If we don't correct it, the satellite will miss its Mars insertion trajectory by approximately 2,000 kilometers. Dr. Santos smiled approvingly. Good catch. 6 months ago, you wouldn't have known what a navigation array was. Eleanor had kept her word. The public apology video, recorded without a script or lawyer present, had been viewed 127 million times. Raw, honest, and painful to watch, it showed a young woman confronting her own privilege and prejudice without deflection or excuse. I called Dr. Dorothy Washington worthless, Eleanor had said directly to the camera. I was wrong. Not just about her, but about the assumptions I've carried my entire life. Real change starts with admitting that those assumptions were taught, learned, and can be unlearned. The video had sparked a broader conversation about accountability versus cancel culture. Eleanor's willingness to submit to genuine consequences rather than disappear had earned grudging respect from unexpected quarters. The Dorothy Washington STEM Scholarship Fund had exceeded all projections. The initial $50 million commitment from Whitmore Industries had attracted matching funds from Google, Microsoft, and NASA itself. By year's end, the fund would support 500 full scholarships for underrepresented students in aerospace engineering. But the real transformation was happening in the day-to-day operations of both companies. Whitmore Industries had implemented the Dignity Protocol across all facilities. Every employee interaction was now guided by principles Dorothy had helped develop. Customer service representatives received quarterly bias training. Management reviews included diversity metrics as seriously as financial performance. Eleanor's Instagram account, once focused on luxury lifestyle content, had evolved into something entirely different. Her followers watched her struggle through calculus, celebrate small engineering victories, and document her growing understanding of the aerospace industry's complexity. Day 180 working at Washington Aerospace, she said into her phone camera during a lunch break. Today, I helped calibrate guidance systems for a satellite that will monitor climate change. 6 months ago, I thought my biggest problems were long airport lines and crowded first-class lounges. The comments section, once filled with admiration for her wealth and style, now showed something deeper. Watching your growth has inspired me to examine my own biases. This is what real accountability looks like. You're becoming the person you were meant to be. Dr. Washington had kept her distance during Eleanor's first months at the company. No special treatment, no mentorship meetings, no acknowledgement beyond what any entry-level engineer might receive. Eleanor had to earn her place through competence and dedication. The breakthrough came during a critical system failure in month 4. A navigation satellite worth $200 million was spinning off course, threatening to become expensive space debris. The engineering team had been working for 18 hours straight, trying different solutions. Eleanor, exhausted and running on coffee and determination, noticed something in the telemetry data that others had missed. A subtle pattern in the gyroscope readings suggested the problem wasn't mechanical failure, but a software conflict in the guidance algorithms.
Dr. Santos, Eleanor said hesitantly, what if we're looking at this wrong? What if the hardware is fine, but the software is fighting itself?
The team tested her hypothesis. She was right. The satellite was saved, and Eleanor had contributed meaningfully to a solution worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Dr. Washington appeared in the control room as the team celebrated. She studied the telemetry readouts, then looked at Eleanor with something that might have been approval.
Interesting observation, Dorothy said simply.
Good work. Those 2 words meant more to Eleanor than any praise she'd received in her previous 28 years. The aerospace industry had taken notice of the Whitmore-Washington partnership. Other companies began implementing similar accountability protocols. The Dorothy Standard became shorthand for corporate dignity policies that prioritized respect over hierarchy. Delta Airlines, where the original incident occurred, launched their own Respect Traveler initiative. Airport staff received body cameras for customer service interactions. Training programs emphasized de-escalation and cultural sensitivity. Tom Bradley, the Sky Club employee who had witnessed the original confrontation, was promoted to Regional Customer Experience Manager. His first project was developing protocols for handling discrimination incidents in real time. The teenagers who had filmed the airport encounter found themselves inadvertently famous. Maya's TikTok account became a platform for discussing privilege and accountability. She received a scholarship from the Dorothy Washington Fund to study aerospace engineering at MIT. Sarah Chen, the marketing executive whose live stream had helped spread the story, left her corporate job to become a documentary filmmaker. Her first project explored the aftermath of viral moments and their impact on systemic change. Eleanor's transformation wasn't complete. Perhaps it never would be. But the young woman who had once dismissed people based on appearance now spent her days learning from colleagues she had once deemed unworthy of respect. On a Tuesday evening in November, as Eleanor worked late calibrating instruments for the next Mars mission, Dr. Washington stopped by her workstation. "Your engineering report was excellent," Dorothy said. "You're ready for more complex projects?" Eleanor looked up from her calculations. "Dr. Washington, can I ask you something? Why didn't you just destroy us completely? You had every right to." Dorothy considered the question carefully. "Because destruction doesn't create lasting change. It just makes people bitter and defensive. Real transformation requires hope that growth is possible." She paused at the door. "Besides, some of the most important touching stories in human history are about people who chose to become better than they were." Eleanor returned to her work, surrounded by the quiet hum of technology that would soon navigate humanity to distant worlds. She was no longer the person who had called Dr. Washington worthless in an airport. She was becoming someone entirely new. 1 year after the JFK Terminal 4 incident, the aerospace industry gathered for the annual Mars Innovation Summit in Houston. Dr. Dorothy Washington stood at the podium, delivering the keynote address to 3,000 engineers, executives, and students from around the world.
Behind her, a massive screen displayed images from the latest Mars mission, guided by navigation systems that bore her company's signature. The technology that Eleanor Whitmore had once dismissed as belonging to people like you was now helping humanity explore distant worlds. Real change, Dorothy said to the captivated audience, doesn't happen in boardrooms or through policy statements. It happens when we choose to see each person's potential rather than our own assumptions. In the third row, Eleanor sat with her Washington Aerospace colleagues. Her company badge read, Navigation Systems Engineer, a title she'd earned through countless 16-hour days, failed calculations, and small victories. Her Instagram account, now focused on aerospace education, had become a platform for other young people learning to confront their own privilege. The Dorothy Washington STEM Scholarship Fund had grown beyond anyone's imagination. Corporate partnerships with Amazon, Tesla, and the European Space Agency had expanded the program globally. Over 2,000 students from underrepresented communities were now pursuing aerospace careers that would have been impossible before that Tuesday afternoon at JFK. These life stories, these touching stories of transformation and accountability, had rippled far beyond aerospace. The Dorothy Standard was now taught in business schools as a case study in ethical leadership. Companies across industries had adopted dignity protocols, bias training, and transparency requirements. But perhaps the most profound change was personal. Eleanor's final engineering project, a backup navigation system for deep space exploration, had been selected for the next Mars mission. The young woman who had once measured her worth through designer labels now calibrated instruments that would guide humanity to other planets. Dr. Washington concluded her keynote with words that had become her signature. We cannot change the past, but we can choose who we become going forward. Every interaction is an opportunity to build bridges rather than walls. The standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. In that applause was recognition not just of Dorothy's scientific achievements, but of her choice to transform a moment of ugliness into systemic change. After the ceremony, a young black engineering student approached Eleanor in the hallway. I saw your transformation video, she said shyly. It helped me understand that people can really change. Thank you for showing us what accountability looks like. Eleanor smiled, remembering her own journey from entitled heiress to earned respect. We all have the capacity to become better than we were, she replied. The question is whether we're brave enough to do the work. These real-life stories matter because they show us what's possible when dignity meets accountability, when privilege chooses growth over defensiveness, when power is used to lift others rather than diminish them. Dr. Dorothy Washington's quiet strength in that airport terminal didn't just save a $900 million merger. It demonstrated that systemic change begins with individual choices. Her decision to educate rather than destroy, to build rather than tear down, created ripples that continue expanding across industries and communities. Eleanor Whitmore's willingness to accept genuine consequences rather than hide behind wealth and lawyers showed that transformation is possible, even for those who seem most resistant to change. What comes next is up to all of us. These black stories, these life stories of resilience and transformation, remind us that every moment of prejudice is also an opportunity for growth. Every instance of discrimination can become a catalyst for systemic change. Share this story if it challenged you to examine your own assumptions. Comment below with your own experiences of witnessing dignity triumph over prejudice. Subscribe for more real-life stories that show how individual courage can create collective change. Because the next time you witness injustice, in an airport, a workplace, or anywhere else, you'll have a choice. You can be part of the problem, or you can choose to become part of the solution. The question Dorothy Washington posed that day still matters. What happens when someone mistakes quiet dignity for weakness? The answer, as we've seen, can change everything.